Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm talking to my lovely friend Natasha Bruce, aka Aruba Red, who is a singer-songwriter. Just before we get started on this episode, I just wanted to give you a little warning that we talk about final stages of life and death and tricky relationships as well. So if you're going through something and this may not be a fit for you, please don't feel like you have to listen and continue at this point. But what I wanted to talk to Natasha today is to share the conversations that we have. We've got our two little boys are really good pals, and often we talk about this stage of reinvention and transformation and moving into this next chapter as women, as mothers, as people on this planet who are creative, and what that looks like for us and how we do that strategically, but also the mindset and the support that we need in order to do that. It's a really juicy one. I think you're going to get loads from it. And I just wanted to thank you also for rating and reviewing and subscribing, for all the love that you give on the podcast. And feel free to tag me at Nicky Raby and let me know where you're listening. I do look at my stats and we're now in every continent in the world, which kind of blows my mind a little bit. So I would love to get to know you and where you listen and what you like and what you want more of, and basically hear that feedback. I'd really appreciate it. As always, come and join in the conversation at Nicky Raby, and we'll go from there, shall we? And here we go. Here it is. Enjoy. Hey, Natasha, welcome to the podcast. This is cool.
It's really cool.
What do you do? What's your job description?
So, I'm a singer-songwriter. I go by the name of Aruba Red. And I'm just getting back into it really after spending the last couple of years focusing on my little boy.
Oh my goodness. So how did singing and writing, how did it start?
I wasn't kind of one of those stage school kids that was really into performing. I was quite shy in terms of like school plays or things like that. I wasn't kind of into performing so much, but it started off more as writing a lot of poetry. So I used to do a lot of poetry, mostly in secret, and I think I would have been mortified by the thought of anybody reading it or reading anything out loud. But I did have a couple of poems published when I was quite young, when I was like 10 or 11, which was nice, and I kind of really enjoyed English literature and writing, so I kind of always thought I would go down more of a writing route. But then when I moved to London for uni, I just started doing... What did I start doing? I think there was one of my lecturers at university, I studied philosophy, he wanted to get into music production. And he asked me one day, after one of our seminars, whether I knew anybody that might be willing to sing these demos. And I was like, oh, it's just demos, like no one's going to hear them. I can do it for you. So I started singing with him, and then I just really enjoyed it. And then I started writing and doing open mic nights. And I think when I started doing the open mic nights, and then you get that kind of exchange of energy from an audience, and it feels really good, that's when it kind of escalated from there. And then I got selected for this really exciting project called Aftershock by the award-winning multi-instrumentalist composer Nitin Sawhney, where he would bring together around 15 different creative people, so like spoken word artists and poets and rappers and different musicians who didn't know each other. He would bring them together for a week to create completely original content to end in a show, and that was super exciting. And he kind of did a few of these around London. I think he did one in India and a few others in Europe and kind of all around the world. And then after that had been going on for about a year, they then selected like 18, I think, people who'd participated in all these different ones and brought them together to do a special one at the South Bank Centre. And we did that, and we performed at this concert to celebrate the reopening of the Royal Festival Hall. And then we got selected as emerging artists in residence, and that was 10 years ago now, which is crazy.
Whoa! And he's still continued to be such a champion of like being in your circle,
he
being
really
in
has,
your world, and it's so great when you meet those people who just
definitely
go, go on, kid.
Well, he was just very instrumental in me kind of deciding that this is something that I actually wanted to do and felt confident enough to try and do as a career rather than just as a creative outlet. So just after that residency started, we then wrote a song together which featured on his album London Undersound, and that song is called Last Train to Midnight. So we did that together, which was really nice. And then I got artist support, a few different artists on their tours, and I released my first debut album and then a few EPs, and I just kind of, it was all still very kind of grassroots and low key, but I was just really enjoying being creative and just seeing where it took me, really.
What does that creative process look like? Like, how does it start, or how do you keep yourself in that flow of being open to the ideas?
I think when I first started writing songs, they would just happen. Like, I literally felt as if it wasn't really about me necessarily. It was like you're this vessel and something's kind of almost passing through you and you're just there to write it down onto a piece of paper. So the whole song would just kind of like, the melody and the words would kind of come very, very quickly. That was when I was kind of mainly writing on my own. Then as I started collaborating with other musicians, the collaborative process is really important in terms of what I do, and I love working with other people. So now I really enjoy, actually booking in to do a writing session with somebody, and if the vibe is right and the energy is right, then we can kind of write a song. We'll get a song kind of done and recorded within like even 3 hours. Like, it doesn't really take long. But if it's right, if it's not right, you can be sitting there all day and like nothing's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of
it's like if you went on a date with somebody pretty quick and you're like, oh no, this is not going to last very long at all.
But I think there is something to be said that if you want this to be your career, you kind of have to learn how to not necessarily have it on tap, but you need to be able to get into the right mindset to create when you have that opportunity to create. And I think after having my little boy, that really helped that, because time is so much more limited. And I'll mainly work for literally like have a 3-hour slot in the morning when he's at nursery, from like 9 o'clock. So it's very different to how I used to work. Like, I used to be in the studio all night and kind of end up just hanging out and just being there and kind of getting in the zone and whatever. Whereas now it's like, right, we've got 3 hours, let's just bang it out.
Quick, let's make this magic happen.
So you're
so right, because I think sometimes, especially with creative stuff, it feels like the business side is never spoken about, or it's all to do with the glamour of being a starving artist, or like being in the zone, or writer's block is seen as such a huge thing. And sometimes you just have to go for it, and you have to give yourself that time and space, as you mentioned. How do you view creativity now, since having your lovely boy, and how has motherhood changed your writing and what you bring to the table?
I think the creative process for me, when I first started writing, the things that would inspire me to write were quite kind of globally and politically motivated, in terms of things that would move me, or things that would, tragedies that would make me feel, despair or sadness or whatever it was. And that's not invalid, but I think as I've progressed over the last decade, it's gone from being a very outward thing to kind of being more of an inward thing. And I think since having my little boy, it's really helped me to connect with myself. And I think now it's the most kind of authentic music that I've ever written, in terms of personal experience and personal emotions and things that I've gone through recently. And I think that's been a really important journey for me. I think there's a space for lots of different kinds of art and music and expression, and I think there's a valid space for protest music, and there's all these things are important. But I think when you really can connect with yourself and your emotions, just the kind of messages that I've been getting from people since this new EP that I've just released has come out, I do think that it's resonating a little bit on a deeper level, which is really nice. I think that's definitely down to that kind of journey of motherhood that's kind of helped me go really inward.
And it's that sense as well of when we're in a caring capacity, that we want good people around us. We don't have time for nonsense, whether that's like your kids doing stuff or not putting their shoes on, when you're like, we've kind of got to get out the door and do all the things. But also, like, when I was in your brilliant music video, which is coming out soon, is that you curated such a wonderful team of people. And I think it's really important to know this, like, for people who listen to this, who have their own business or they're trying to build something or whatever, that you have to get people around you who go, you're doing it, I support you, really and do. I really connect with your vision.
I wasted a lot of time earlier on in my career people pleasing, looking for external validation, and kind of almost like begging for opportunities, not literally begging, but the energy was kind of very much like, I really need this and I want this to happen, rather than just focusing on the art and kind of on the creation and connecting with people who really get what it is that you're trying to do. And I think I totally resonate with what you're saying, because now that time is so limited, and also you just don't have the time to waste with people that are not conducive to kind of helping this positive energy kind of overflow, or that you just don't want anything other than that. So whereas before I would have been saying yes to every opportunity just because I'm like, I need to do this, and kind of spreading myself more thinly, and kind of now it's like, if something doesn't feel right, or if someone's energy is a bit off, or it just doesn't sit right, then I'm so much more empowered as a mother to just leave it and say no. Whereas before I didn't have that confidence in myself, or that kind of
that sense
stability.
Of like the bigger vision as well.
Exactly.
We were talking about this earlier before we started recording, that sense of like, I know much more like where I'm going and what I want to build, but also there's that sense of giving yourself permission to want what you want, and
it's also put things into perspective, because I think before it was kind of this, I kind of had this weird relationship with like the tragedy of kind of people not getting what you're trying to do, or being unappreciated. Whereas now I feel like if my little boy's okay and I'm okay, we've actually got this wonderful life just having each other. Everything else is kind of like a bonus. It doesn't really matter. Like this music that I've written now and that I'm creating, it's for myself and for my family. And I've said this a few times, it's like me and Che will listen to it and he'll sing along to it and dance around the living room. That's enough for me. Obviously, it's amazing if it resonates with people. It's amazing if it can, generate an income from your creative endeavours. That's the dream. But at the same time, it's okay if everything's okay. Like it's all fine. There's not this desperation attached to it anymore.
And that sense of intention, like knowing why you're doing something, is really key. Because I think, as well as a creative, sometimes you get opportunities where you're like, on one hand, it sounds good, but you get that, I get it in the pit of my stomach sometimes, but like but this is a no. This is an absolute no.
Yeah.
And Matt and I had it a couple of years ago where we were invited. I'm not going to go into details on the podcast, but if you want to email me separately, I will tell you what it is. But we were invited in for this casting for the two of us, and had we got it, it would have been £25,000.
Wow, okay.
So it's not like, you know, a packet of crisps and a sandwich. It's kind of, it would have been big money, but it wasn't the right fit for either of us. That was not, and because of, I guess, of what we do and having a personal brand and all of that sort of stuff, you really have to tap into your own values. And
it's so important.
And you're doing lots of work around this, aren't you? Like going into the next steps of going, what do you want to build, what's important. And
totally. You have to feel right about what you're doing, otherwise it won't lead to, you know, positive things down the line. I don't think. You have to feel good about it.
What are the things that you do every day that just make you feel good and centered? Or, you know, because being a mum and doing lots of different things and like getting back to emails or like having a lack of sleep or things like that, what is the stuff that helps you recenter and not let your head, like we all do, kind of go into that sort of zone?
I think that's really important. I think just being aware of that is the first step. Being aware of when you're going down a bit of a spiral, or when you're, you know, your breathing is a bit erratic and you're just kind of...
Your voice is
you're going a bit manic. For me, I think the quickest thing that helps me with that is literally just going outside and looking up. Like it can be as simple as that, literally just going outside and just looking up, and it might sound mad, but just literally looking at the trees or looking at the colour of the green against the colour of the sky, and kind of just taking a moment and just breathing and just kind of realising what we're actually all connected with, rather than all this other noise that is kind of in the way. And I mean, that even works for my little boy when he's having, you know, a meltdown. Just getting him to look up, I think it just kind of helps you lift out of your, you know, your lower self. It just kind of helps you kind of get where you need to be in that moment. So that really helps me. In terms of more, you know, ritualistic things, I practice Reiki on myself every evening before I go to sleep. So that really helps me I feel it helps me have a better quality of sleep. My little boy's not the best sleeper in the world, so you know, he's going to be 3 at Christmas, and so it's been, you know, nearly 3 years of, you know, sleep deprivation, which I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to. But I've been bringing him up on my own as well, so it's kind of that, you know, never have a night off, kind of up multiple times every night for 3 years. You know, it can, you know, it can start getting to you.
Yeah, there's nothing charming about sleep deprivation.
No, there isn't.
Or kind of glamorous about it, where it's...
But I find the Reiki really helps with it. It calms me just before bed, so I try not to...
What does that look like?
So I've just trained in Reiki 1, so it's, you know, the first stage, which allows you to practice on yourself and close friends and family. And it's just a series of hand movements, mainly across different parts of your face. And then your chest, and then you kind of gradually work down, you know, over your body. And it can be anything from a few moments to, you know, a full hour. Like, I never get to the full hour because it puts me to sleep. But you can also then use it if you've got any ailments in your body. You can kind of, you know, just bring that healing energy to it. Whether you believe in the, you know, how much it works or not, it's just a very calming, ritualistic thing to do. And I think doing that rather than scrolling through your Instagram, or rather than, I don't know, engaging in any kind of electronic thing before you go to sleep, it helps me. So the way that the way that I kind of like deal with the lack of sleep is that, so the Reiki, and then I'm a really big believer in kind of working quite strategically on manifestations and kind of positive affirmations. So I kind of discovered the effectiveness of it for me when I decided to have a home birth with my little boy. I kind of always knew that I didn't want to go to a hospital, just because I hadn't had a positive experience of hospitals, especially when my dad was not very well before he passed away. And obviously hospitals are amazing places when we need them, but I just kind of wanted to go into the whole birth thing as like, if I need it, but not as the first point. And I just think wherever a woman feels safe is the right place for her. So I'm not anti-hospitals. It's just for me, I don't feel safe there. So it was the first thing in my life that I had a plan, and I trained for it. Like I literally trained for it. So, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally,
going, come on, let's.
We're literally, because I had, you know, that's kind of what I did, and a big part of that was just completely changing my mindset. So, you know, create this bubble of peace around yourself. You don't allow anyone to come at you with negative birth talk. And then I kind of started realising how effective that was for me. So I started extending it to other aspects of my life. So I'm like, okay, don't come and talk to me about traumatic birth events when I'm pregnant.
Why do people do that?
I think it's because as women we're not given safe spaces to deal with often traumatic births, which a lot of births are very traumatic because we're not, you know, for various reasons. Even when everything goes, you know, seemingly well, it's still a huge thing for a woman to go through. I don't think we're given adequate space to just discuss it in a safe and supportive way, so that then when we see a pregnant person we're triggered into like you just start like offloading all this really kind of negative, and that just seemed to be this thing. And obviously in movies and everything we're just kind of uploaded with all this really negative data about birth,
and we're expected to quickly switch from that, like you've had the birth but now you're the superwoman, and like when are you getting back to work and when are you doing it? It's like, wow. So I just kind of I really was serious about it, and I just kind of really planned for it in terms of, you know, physically doing what I could to make sure the baby was in the right position, and kind of sticking things on my walls in terms of like what this is, you know, and just kind of really getting in the zone. And obviously I'm not saying that women who it doesn't then go to plan for have done anything wrong. It's not about that. It was just about me. Like I had this plan, I followed it through, and then for me it ended up being successful. I still found it one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it just showed me that I can achieve certain things if I plan for them. And I think that the affirmations and kind of the manifestation kind of like, it seemed to really help me kind of through that situation. So I then decided to use those things of, you know, self-hypnosis and kind of meditation, and extend it to other aspects of my life, and it just seems to have really had a huge impacted a huge change for me. And just sort of I'm doing the 5 to 10k at the moment. There have been times where I've been running around the streets like I can't do it, God, you know, the sort of the tread water panicky thing. And actually what I've just got to do, and I'm sure I should probably shout them out loud at some point, like, come on, you can do this. And I've actually forced myself to go past areas where it's like, oh, my labour started there, or that's where my pregnancy yoga is. Because it's those things, like whether you've had a baby or not, like being able to draw on those experiences that you've had in your life where you've really had to dig deep. And, you know, certainly in family situations, you know, we've had moments where me and my mum go, God, I can't believe we're here. I can't believe we're having... And, you know, as you get older as well, more of those sort of situations happen where real life is going on and you're not... you know, I remember there was a time once when my granddad fell in the middle of the night and he was supposed to stay in his bed. He could barely move, but for some reason, like, he'd staggered down the hallway and he ended up in the living room. And I remember having this moment of going, gosh, I need to take care of my granny now. I need to get her to think carefully, and who can we phone, and getting all these things sorted. And it's knowing that even if you're a mum, but like that moment of going through huge transition in your life, there's another chapter, but you can draw on all the other things from all the other chapters going forward. You're never starting from scratch.
Yeah, that's true. True.
Where do you see this next chapter going? Do you have a really clear idea, or do you, because this is really different kind of music of sort of, you know, it's a real celebration of, I mean, I know it's mixed, people need to listen to all the bits, but it's sort of, it's very expansive.
I mean, it just felt like therapy, really, creating this project. It really, really did. So I stopped doing music a couple of years before I had my baby, because of some quite difficult situations, and it's hard to kind of go into detail, but I was basically kind of advised to stop doing music because it wasn't good enough and people weren't connecting with it and it wasn't making enough money, by somebody who's not in my life anymore. And unfortunately, you know, I allowed all of that negative talk for years to kind of end up convincing me, sadly, that I wasn't good enough to do what I really felt passionate about. And I kind of fell into that trap of comparing myself to a lot of my peers that I'd been kind of coming up with that were doing really well in a commercial sense and kind of, you know, commercially very successful. And that's never what I started doing it for. It's always about expression and kind of just letting things out. And I just think everybody is creative and everybody is artistic. Some people end up getting paid for it and some people don't. That can't be the basis for why you do something. Like, you can be working, you know, in any job and then come home and sing to your kids. It's beautiful. Do you know what I mean? It's not about whether you're getting paid for it or not, but somehow something shifted in terms of the environment that I was existing within, and I allowed that to kind of break me. So I stopped creating music. Financially, things were quite hard, and I was working 2 jobs and having to support somebody else, and it was just kind of, it was a really difficult, emotionally, like, it was a really difficult time, and I didn't really feel that I could talk to anybody about what was really going on. It was hard. It was really hard. Then my dad passed away, and that kind of, I think, started what the only thing that I could describe is as a transformation for me. So me and my sister kind of cared for him the last few days of his life in a way that I think a lot of people in our culture now are not able to. So we were given that, what I see as a real blessing, to kind of really care for him in an intimate way, in the way that he wanted to be cared for. He didn't want to go to hospital. He didn't want to go to hospice. And that felt like a privilege, to kind of be able to care for your parent in the way that, you know, they might have cared for you when you were a baby. And it's kind of, you know, it's very tragic and sad, but also kind of weirdly beautiful.
Something very full circle about it.
It really was, yeah. And just kind of like being with him and knowing every morning that, like, this might be the last sunrise and this might be the last sunset. It was kind of, and then when he was taking his last breath, you know, the whole family was around his bed, and we, in his studio, like, we had this bed set up in his studio with his, you know, his bass guitars on the wall, and my dad was a musician, by the way, to give some relevance to it, and you know, all of the instruments were surrounding him, and you know, we were all just holding his hands and we were with him. And that night, like, it was the early hours of the morning, and when it happened, I just felt this, it was just a very ethereal, kind of beautiful, shrouded glow over everything, and I just felt so connected with, like, the universe. I felt so connected, and I didn't feel that he'd gone. I just felt like it was different. And I think because I had such a negative experience of death before, my brother had died when I was 15, and then my first boyfriend passed away when I was 17, and then my best friend's brother died when I was 19, and then my next boyfriend's sister died when I was like 21. It'd literally been like a series of very young people dying throughout these years of my life. So I kind of had developed this very melancholy kind of, you know, people just die and, like, life is really tragic, and kind of I don't think you probably would have known that about me externally if you knew me, but internally there was just kind of a lot of kind of tragedy kind of like fused in within my soul kind of thing. And
when you're in that late teenager, early 20s,
it was kind of
quite see, you don't have the wisdom of the mid 30s or beyond.
It was hard, it was hard. And I think losing my dad was actually, you know, every day I wish I could see him again, but it was a hugely healing thing for me, because it was like the first time I felt that it had happened in the way that it should have happened, if that makes sense. Like, obviously, you know, I would love for him to have met my little boy and be here, and I would love that, you know, more than anything. But it reframed death for me. Like, he died in the way that he wanted to, surrounded by his family and friends. We knew it was coming, so I was able to, you know, tell him all the things that I wanted to tell him and kind of share those precious last moments, whereas everyone else I'd lost, it'd been very sudden. So there wasn't that opportunity to kind of, it's just a shock, you know, you're just shocked and you just feel like someone's ripped away from you. So for me, that was a really, really healing thing. I just remember that night, it was just, you know, the moon, and there was this butterfly just kind of like flying in this big room where his grand piano was, and it was just all just so, it was like I was watching this beautiful, tragic movie almost, but I just felt really connected to everything. And then when I had my little boy the following year, he was born on a full moon, you know, in the spare room of my house in the water, and it was Christmas Day as well. And I had that same feeling where it's almost like, I think they call it thin spaces, and it's where the veil between this life and the next is very thin, and there's these rare moments where the fabric of the universe is like, you can literally feel the other side, and like you can just feel this connection to things, and it's like, yeah, the death and the birth and kind of this, and I just felt overwhelmed with this just gratitude and just joy and kind of being lifted up, I guess. And that's what I felt like my dad was being lifted up, and then similarly, when I became very suddenly and kind of under quite shocking circumstances, I then became a single mum after a lot of kind of quite deep lies had unravelled that had kind of gone on over a decade. It was that same feeling again, initial kind of trauma and shock, followed by this veil being lifted off my face, and I could actually see reality for the first time. So it was like these three kind of quite major life events had happened in a relatively short space of time, and just triggered this transformation. And I literally felt like I knew myself for the first time. I could see the world for the first time. I could see the beauty of the world for the first time. Like the colours were more vibrant. I could just see the patterns that I'd been caught in, these toxic thinking patterns, the data that I'd been uploaded as a child, you know, all these things that we kind of do without knowing it, like regurgitating these generations of way it is. Generations of just negative, you know, thinking patterns, and kind of we're stuck in these cycles. And sometimes we'll say things and we'll just be like, I didn't even think that. Why am I saying? So kind of it just helped me to really really break away all of that and kind of really get to the essence of what I wanted to be and the life that I wanted to create. And it was the first time that I realised I actually have a choice, and I can be happy. Like I can choose to change things. I don't have to be stuck in an abusive situation, or in a, you know, situation where I'm kind of, anyway, it was just gave me like this strength to be more assertive and kind of conscious in what I was choosing for myself and my son, and like the kind of life that I wanted us to have. I wanted us to have a positive, calm life without you know, violence, without being controlled, just to kind of be free. And I wanted him to know that he could be free, and not to kind of be existing where you're in a world growing up on eggshells, or kind of worried about what to say, and kind of just that whole codependency kind of addiction cycle that kind of so many of us kind of stem from our family lineages, and just kind of break out of that. And I just feel really, really grateful. And the music has just been a therapy from that session. My sister's partner, who's got a studio in Tottenham, Marek, he wrote me a little gift voucher for, I think it was my birthday, you know, come down to the studio and write a song, and we'll just see what happens. And that's when I wrote that song Holy Waters, which is about the journey of birth and becoming a mum. And that was just a song that I wrote for myself. And then, you know, we shot this little kind of music video in Mallorca at my mum's place. It's almost like a little home video style, just of me and Che. Like, just I wanted to capture that really intimate time that we had, just the two of us, because it was literally just the two of us for so long. And that's going to come out soon. And then I was just like, wow, like I miss being creative. I miss this so much. And
it finds you again,
it
doesn't
finds you,
it?
yeah, you can't really run from it if it's inside you, like, and you can't.
I have it with acting sometimes, where I'm just like, oh, you're back. Oh, it's that, it's like a little, I don't know, it kind of cracks, you know, you might kind of try and hide it over because you're like, well, maybe it's not the thing, or maybe it's not, it was only for that time, but it never leaves you.
It doesn't. And, you know, you can have the self-sabotage going on, or you can kind of, you know, we'll pick up on the one negative thing that happened and forget the 100 amazing things, you know? And it's just about finding, like, a space where we know what we think of ourselves, and not allowing anybody else to kind of tell you what to think about yourself. You know? Like,
yeah, especially if you're a big dreamer as well. Especially if you're like, I want all of the things, because people will tell you otherwise. And sometimes it is the nearest and dearest, you know, oh, what's she up to now? She's so busy, or she's so this. And it's learning how to turn it, like, you know, if you're in a studio, like turning up the right dials, like, am I going to listen to this, or
and you
am
can
I
do it in quite a private, you know, personal way. You don't need to kind of advertise to everybody what you're doing necessarily. And then
I'm just turning the dial down on you
and then
now.
the changes just kind of start happening, and it's amazing. And there's no limit to abundance. Like, it's limitless. So there's no limit to it. It's kind of this idea that, you know, we can't have everything because there's not enough to go around.
It's impolite to ask for more.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's about letting go of all those notions and just, you know, there is no limit, really.
And being mums of boys, like, there's so much I want to show them, and obviously they're going to find their own way as well. But you're right. We have to cultivate like what we know, and then figure out what we want to take with it. I felt like that when I left drama school. It's like, lovely, I've got 3 years of solid information, but that's not going to work for me. So I'll just park it there and I'll leave it, but I'll focus much more on this. Yeah. So I guess, like, one final question, like, where do you want to be in 5 years' time?
Where do I want to be? Well, you know, the new EP has just come out, and we're creating new visuals for it. And I think what I want to do is just continue to make art that I'm really proud of, and that reflects my personal journey, but that also resonates with people and who need it. You know, like, I like to connect with people. Everyone's on their own journey, and I just hope that some of what I'm kind of singing about and some of the messages that are infused within the music can just help people on their own journey. It's kind of the theme of transformation is like a really big thing in what I do, and I just want to share that with people, really, and just kind of keep sharing that with people, and just growing artistically, the people that I can collaborate with and write with, and just seeing where it takes me.
So exciting. And also, you're the most wonderful mummy as
thank
well.
you.
And yeah, you've certainly helped me so much.
You helped me. I remember when we first met. Just gave me a big hug.
Yeah, because I think we both had a night of like madness, and there was some. But it was interesting. Just one sort of final point that it's hard to kind of articulate it. But I saw a woman this morning who I'd seen maybe 8-9 months ago.
Yeah,
and Oscar was having a nightmare in a shoe shop, and it was just that day where he was just angry, and I'm sure I didn't handle it in the best way, and he cried and I cried, and this lady came over to me and just said something that I think I've erased from my memory because it just felt really traumatic, where she sort of shamed me for like having a naughty child almost. I was like, oh, this is not the right time to kind of have that judgment. And I saw her bizarrely today, and she had a newborn, and that response sometimes, you know, an eye for an eye, kind of going, you know, you've got your hands full. You could easily do that. Yeah. But I just smiled at her and sent her love, because I was like, that's how I want to show up in the world. And the fact that she sort of judged me in that situation, it's like, it's all good, mate. But
and a lot of the time, I think whenever any of us feel that judgment, I think it's usually something about ourselves, you know. Yeah. I think that's what I have to kind of tell myself when I feel that from somebody else, or the judgments that I might have. It's kind of like, why am I having that reaction? Like, why? You know, I'm sure she's gonna figure that out when she,
going, why was I mean to that nice smiling lady? But if people want to come and find out more, and like where you're hanging out and watch the video and all that stuff.
So you can go to my website, which is arubaredmusic.com, or you can literally just find me on any of the socials. So Facebook, Twitter is just Aruba Red, and Instagram is Aruba Red Flicks, Flicks, and so it's Aruba like the island and red like the colour. She was a legendary female pirate,
She sounds mega.
And the videos should be out soon. So the first one is Goddess Vibes, featuring yourself.
Well, that was, but I was just going to say there were so many butterflies that day in the garden.
It was an amazing day.
It was one of those where it was just like the sun was out.
It was literally one of the best days of my life. I know that sounds crazy, but it was one of the best days, that shoot. So yeah, my friend, Farah from DNR Films kind of pulled, this amazing project together with me, and there's so many amazing people involved, just so many women. I just wanted to. The song is about up leveling, like moving up through levels of consciousness whilst simultaneously moving back through layers of trauma. So it's kind of this. That's kind of what I feel like I'm in therapy at the moment. I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm moving up by moving back, if that makes sense. And that's what the song is about. And it's about self-love and self-empowerment and celebrating the divine feminine and motherhood, and also paying tribute to just some of the amazing women in my life. So we've just, you were there, we shot these, it's almost like moving portraits of these women, just very, diverse beauty, and just celebrating, just the amazing energy that, these females have. And and I just think also the people that were kind of involved in the project, like Ashley and the stylist, and just everybody that was involved, like, it's just a really exciting project, and I can't wait for people to see that one. And then the other video, Holy Waters, is more intimate, me and Che together. So that you'll be able to see those soon. And the EP is out on iTunes and Apple Music and Spotify and all those places. So you can just type in Aruba Red, Holy Waters, and we just reached number 7 on the Hot Albums iTunes chart for R&B and soul, which is very unexpected and really exciting. So
I think I saw your screenshot. I was like, Aretha Franklin, like, move aside.
It was between like Aretha Franklin and Amy Winehouse. I was like, what's happening here? Like, so that was really nice. That was really, really lovely. So and then also I've got a concert. I'm doing a little show at 100 Club on Oxford Street on the 10th of October, and then Hootenanny in Brixton on the 4th of November. Brilliant. So there'll be links about that on my stuff.
And I'll add it all into the show notes as well. But it's just, it's such an exciting time. And one thing I was just going to finish with was that day of the women that you brought together, it was such a notion of, we're just all getting started. I think sometimes there's that pressure of going, I had the best rack when I was 19, and it's like, maybe I did, but I've got other things to offer as a nearly 37-year-old woman.
And you know what? There's no expiration date on art.
No, or your rack.
Is it?
You're right.
There isn't, right? There isn't.
And actually just to be excited about what's to come rather than what's gone by. And
I had all these like hang-ups about, I need to achieve this before I'm 30, and I need to do this before I have a kid, and I need to do that. And it's like, now that those things have happened, it's like, whatever. That all those expectations can just fall away, and you can literally just do you.
And it's like, even Oscar said today, like, what's the plan today, Mummy? And I was like, I love being able to, like, talk about the plan and what we're doing.
Yeah,
like,
you need a good plan.
Yeah, and I was like, and also I love the fact that you like to know what we're doing and that you're inquisitive and that you're not one of those, like, whatever boys. I'm sure that will come. But thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me, and also for, participating in the video and just sharing your amazing energy.
Who doesn't want to be a goddess for the day? I put my flower crown on and I was like, yes, this is me. This is my Sunday best.
Goddess vibes. I've actually dried that flower crown. It's hanging in my bedroom. I've still got it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, amazing.
We'll just do that. Like, can I just come and be a goddess for the day and not do anything?
Yeah, definitely.
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nikki.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.